The one thing about this man, or Omar Mateen, he had a completely clean record, as you might expect. At least if you've listened to the Wells Report for any length of time, he would have a very clean record because obviously someone who had left tracks behind probably would not have as much success as the Orlando terrorist who took 49 of our neighbors from us. Joining us is a dear friend of the Wells Report. He is a superb human being. He is Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. He's an MD. He is the founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. He is the author of A Battle for the Soul of Islam, an American Muslim patriot's fight to save his faith. Sir, welcome to the Wells Report. Good to have you here.
Well, it's good to be with you. Thanks for having me back.
You've had a very busy day. Lots of people have come to ask what you think about all of this. You know, you and I have to stop meeting like this.
I know. You think one of these will be a tipping point where America finally gets it and starts to identify the enemy as Islamism. And, you know, the reason the naming is important is it allows a change in who we monitor and how we monitor this so that we go from simply waiting for them to become violent to actually countering the ideology, but we don't seem to learn.
I don't know. I don't know why that is, Doctor. I look at this, and I'm going, how many more people have to die? Now we've got, let's see, I would assume that it's about 63 people dead at the hands of 3 people. I mean, the war has changed. We have to start fighting the new war.
I know, and you know, it has gone beyond. There was no softer target than San Bernardino, where they attacked a Christmas party and at a healthcare facility. And this target was not necessarily soft. It's a natural target of the radicals to target a gay bar, as it is a natural target to target a synagogue or target Charlie Hebdo in Paris, which are ideological front lines in this battle for those who have the courage to stand up to the militants and who are vulnerable minorities that if you look in Iran or Saudi Arabia, anyone who understands theocratic Islam will understand that those are the front lines of those who are the most persecuted and tortured by the theocrats when they run the place. So imagine mosques and other ideologies that may be nonviolent, but yet to disconnect violent homophobia from nonviolent homophobia is foolishness. You have to connect the two. And for our Homeland Security, even today, Director Comey was saying that, well, it looks like he was radicalized on the Internet. The reason he's saying that is the operative definition of radicalization is when they decided to look for weapons and become militant jihadists. That's all our entire security operation can look at. They can't look at anything else and define it as radicalization because we're not defining radicalism as the ideology of theocracy and political Islam. We only define it as when they want to find a weapon and get militant. And that's when he was looking online and was told likely we're going to find was when he became motivated to actually be a soldier versus being an ideologue like his father who supported the Taliban and other bizarre aspects of the life around him.
Now, that guy is a poster child for duplicity. More about him coming up a little bit later on. There was one thing that's very interesting to me, and that is that the National Review came out with an article that said killing homosexuals is not ISIS law, it's Muslim law. For nearly 25 years, we've been clinging to the fiction that groups such as ISIS are anti-Islamic. That is obviously clearly not the case. Andrew McCarthy makes that point in National Review. But is this indeed Muslim law?
Well, it's certainly normative Muslim law that is the predominant interpretation of Islam coming out of the institutions that are the leading producers of clerics around the planet, such as Al-Azhar University in Cairo or the Islamic universities and clerics of Saudi Arabia that are the forefathers and founding fathers of the ISISes and the Hamases of the world. So ultimately, is this the interpretation of most Muslims in America? I don't believe so. But do we have the textbooks and the interpretation of Sharia to back up what we're saying? No, we don't. And we have to realize in this month of atonement, in this month of Ramadan, we have to come to terms with the fact and look in the mirror and say, if we believe this is our religion, then it's mandated that we begin to train imams to change the interpretation of Sharia that's on the textbooks in most of the mosques, which the Reliance of the Traveler is one of those Sharia books. Andy McCarthy is absolutely right. That is what is on the textbooks of the shelves of most of the mosques coming out of the Islamic Society of North America. There is no moderation when it comes to homophobia, homosexuality, and it is homophobic. There is no moderation when it comes to the way the Jews are treated and the way women are treated. And even crime, the penalty for stealing is still the cutting of hands according to the interpretations of the Quran. And we need to moderate this type of 13th century mentality.
There was, by the way, we're speaking with Dr. Jasser. He is the founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, the author of A Battle for the Soul of Islam, an American Muslim patriot's fight to save his faith. You were, by the way, also appointed to the Senate Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's panel, the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. You are a commissioner there, and we thank you very much for your service, sir. It is incredibly important that you continue your hard work. There was something that I wanted to get your thoughts on. An imam apparently had preached in the mosque where Omar, the attacker, was an adherent, or at least a member of. Does he bear any of the? Does he bear any kind of? Is he an accessory in any way?
Oh, well, that's a great question. Accessory as far as driving him to commit terrorism,
right.
No.
Yeah.
There's no evidence that he told him to commit the act, but did he radicalize him? I compared the father today to when he was interviewed. I said it's sort of like interviewing the bartender when a drunk driver decides to drive through a parade and kill hundreds. And, they're handing out the intoxicants. The imam is handing out the intoxicants that train individuals like this to have intolerance, and certainly they become much more susceptible because when you look at enablers, it's not only the religious community around them, but there were folks at work that denied his abusiveness, denied his bigotry. They were afraid they'd get targeted of being called Islamophobes. The boss at his work apparently also did not fire him and claimed financial reasons for not doing so. I mean, we have a epic proportions of problems and layers in society right now because we're all in so much denial. The enabling of these militants is on multiple levels.
And once again, we get back to this, the same thing that we always come to in a conversation like this with Dr. Jasser, and that is, okay, what do we do now? It seems as though that this is going to stop, and I keep saying this, the same things that I keep telling you. This is going to stop when we, the people of the United States, take a bigger responsibility role in the protection of ourselves, I think. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think it's going to stop, you're right, and that protection is going to lead to needing a strategy. We need a Manhattan Project that convenes public and private groups that are honest about what the enemy is, who the enemy is, and that we say that, yes, Muslims need to lead this, but we need to take sides within the House of Islam, and we need to stop the fear of Saudi Arabia, the fear of Qatar and Turkey and our so-called allies, and tell them, listen, you might be with us in fighting ISIS and Al-Qaeda, supposedly, but your ideologies are our enemy, and your ideologies are feeding modernity, and we're calling you to Muslims in America.
We're having just a little bit of trouble. We're having just a little bit of trouble with your connections. Can you say that one last statement again?
Yeah, Muslims need to lead this, and the allies that are so-called allies are actually, we need to put them on notice that they are not our allies, and that they are actually feeding the ideologies that radicalize, and we should no longer be afraid of tipping the balance globally. And this is one of the reasons the State Department and the President cite as being why they will not identify it as radical Islam, because they don't want to upset the Turks or the Qataris or the Saudis. In our Muslim Reform Movement, I'd ask people to go to the website, muslimreformmovement.org, and download our two-page declaration. That declaration that condemns the caliphate, that condemns all Islamic states, condemns violent jihad, calls for the recognition of the equality of men and women, the sexual identity, choices of individuals need to be free. These are things we've said since our formation a year ago, and it should be used as a template on how to vet which Muslims are with us and which are against us, which Muslims should be given security clearances and which ones shouldn't, which countries and movements we should support versus those that we should be against. And we don't have that. We need a strategy that does that. Until then, we're going to continue to have this whack-a-mole program.
Dr. Zuhdi Jasser is our guest on 660 AM The Answer. I have said that I've kind of reduced this down to a three-part question when it comes to Muslims around the world. There are the people that are your beloved neighbors who you would do anything for, you inclusive, of course. There is a group in the middle that are silent. And there is this group at the other end of the spectrum who are the people we're talking about tonight, Omar Mateen and people like him. My concern is mainly for the people in the middle, because obviously there is some support for what the jihadis are doing in that big group of silence. And it seems to me that if there is not anything getting done, it is because of some of the, I guess, unspoken momentum of what's going on in that big group. What are your thoughts about that idea? Does that analogy have any basis in reality for you?
Yeah, I've used a similar analogy, and I've always said there's the folks on the field and the jihadists that are the militants that wear the jerseys and want to be part of it. Then there's the ones in the stadium cheering them on, and then there's the majority that are sitting at home doing nothing. And some of them are actually watching it on TV and participating vicariously, but yet agree they don't like the memes, they wouldn't be on the field, but yet they're cheering them on because they have a common enemy, which is America, the West, etc. So, I said we can't counter ISIS by simply teaching Muslims that, well, the violence is bad and the way you're doing it is bad without even addressing the means that they seek. Until Muslims, the issue is the ISIS radicals want to die for ISIS, and they'll do anything, including killing innocents in bars and other places because they want to go to heaven, especially in times like Ramadan. So the only way to counter that is to teach our youth that it was much more godlike to want to die for America, to want to die for freedom and liberty against the Islamists. Until we can get our youth lining up in tripping over one another to want to join the American military, Homeland Security, and other forces that protect our freedoms versus wanting to sign up for ISIS, we're not going to win this. And we've seen very little of that, and I said yesterday, we should, as Muslims, declare war on the jihadists. And we should say that we're going to do everything we can to have a jihad against jihad. And they've not done that.
That is exactly what must happen. And it figures that you would come up with it. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, well, again, that website, Muslim Reform, what was that?
MuslimReformMovement.org. And I'd ask people to download our declaration there and use it in conversations across the country.
You'll be able to find that on the Wells Report page of 660 AM The Answer. Founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, the author of A Battle for the Soul of Islam, an American Muslim patriot's fight to save his faith, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. We're blessed to have you again, sir. Thank you so much.
Anytime. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you very much. By the way, do I say happy Ramadan?
Yes, a blessed Ramadan. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Have a great evening. You're listening to the Wells Report. This is 660 AM The Answer.